The Disappearance and Murder of Laci Peterson, a twisted tale of love and deceit. Imagine the shock, the heartbreak, the confusion of a life that seems perfect, suddenly torn apart. In December of 2002, Laci Peterson, a 27-year-old woman from Modesto, California, vanished without a trace. What followed was a heart-wrenching story of love, lies, and betrayal, one that captivated the nation and left countless questions still unanswered. This is the story of Laci Peterson's disappearance and the shocking twist that led to her tragic death. Laci Peterson's life before the disappearance. Laci Denise Rocha was born on May 4, 1975, in California. She was a vibrant young woman, full of life and love. At the age of 27, she was married to Scott Peterson, a charming and seemingly successful man. They were expecting their first child, a baby boy they had already named Connor. Laci's life was full of promise. She was a beloved daughter, a devoted wife, and a woman with a bright future ahead. But all of that would change in a split second. On the day she disappeared, she was just a few weeks away from her due date, excited to welcome her son into the world. The disappearance. It was Christmas Eve 2002 when Laci Peterson disappeared from her home in Modesto. Scott Peterson, her husband, claimed he left the house early in the morning to go to a local marina to go fishing. He said he left Laci at home, planning to return later in the day. But when he came back that afternoon, Laci was gone. Her family became frantic when they realized she hadn't come home. Laci's purse, keys, and even the family dog were left behind. There was no sign of a struggle, no obvious reason for her to disappear. Scott Peterson seemed calm, almost detached, as he reported her missing. The investigation begins. As the investigation began, it quickly became clear that Laci Peterson's disappearance wasn't a simple case. Police and detectives scoured the area surrounding the Peterson home, and volunteers searched the fields nearby. The media quickly picked up the story, and soon Laci's face was plastered on every news outlet. But as the hours turned into days, the mystery only deepened. Scott Peterson, who initially cooperated with the investigation, was soon under suspicion. His behavior raised eyebrows. He seemed more focused on his appearance in the media than on helping find his wife. He gave interviews to the press, describing his love for Laci and his distress over her disappearance, but many noticed his lack of emotion. The discovery of Laci's body. Months passed without answers. Then, in April of 2003, a break in the case came that would stun the world. A fisherman in the waters of the San Francisco Bay discovered a body. It was the body of Laci Peterson. But there was more. Nearby, the body of her unborn son Connor was found as well. Both Laci and Connor had been dumped in the water, their bodies decomposed. It was clear that Laci had been murdered, and Connor, who was just 8 months old in the womb, was also killed. The circumstances surrounding their deaths were grim. Evidence pointed to foul play, and the investigation quickly turned from a missing person case to a homicide investigation. The arrest of Scott Peterson. As the investigation unfolded, it became increasingly clear that Scott Peterson was a prime suspect. On April 21, 2003, Scott was arrested and charged with 2 counts of murder: the murder of Laci and the murder of their unborn child, Connor. The case was shocking, not just because of the brutality of the crime, but because Scott had been involved in a public campaign to find his wife, all while hiding a dark secret. Evidence began to mount against Scott Peterson. It was discovered that he had been having an affair with a woman named Amber Frey, who had no idea he was married. Additionally, investigators found that Scott had been planning to flee to Mexico shortly after Laci's disappearance. The trial. The trial of Scott Peterson began in 2004 and was broadcast to millions of people across the nation. the case became a media circus, with sensationalized coverage that captured the public's attention. The prosecution argued that Scott Peterson had murdered Laci because he wanted to be free of his responsibilities as a husband and father, pointing to his affair and his behavior in the days following her disappearance. The defense, on the other hand, argued that Scott had no motive to kill his wife and that there was no direct evidence linking him to the crime. They suggested that Laci might have been killed by someone else, but the prosecution was firm in their belief that Scott was guilty. The verdict and sentencing. After nearly 5 months of testimony, the jury deliberated for 7 days. On November 12, 2004, Scott Peterson was convicted of 2 counts of murder, the first-degree murder of Laci Peterson and the second-degree murder of their unborn son, Connor. Scott Peterson was sentenced to death in December of 2004, but as the years passed, questions about the case continued. Was Scott truly guilty of what he was accused of? Or had he been a victim of a flawed investigation and sensationalized media coverage? Conclusion. Laci Peterson's tragic death left an indelible mark on her family, friends, and everyone who followed the case. Though Scott Peterson was convicted, the mystery of why he killed his wife and the questions surrounding his motivations may never be fully answered. But one thing is certain: the story of Laci Peterson is one that will continue to be told for generations to come. Thank you for joining me in this exploration of one of the most heartbreaking and mysterious cases of our time. If you found this story compelling, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more true crime stories.